Alrighty, let's get this show on the road, shall we? Firstly, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's call, Systemising Sales Success, how to consistently win more clients with a limited budget. I'm super excited about today's presentation because sales is my background. That's where I came from. We've got three excellent presenters that are going to talk about different elements of the sales process. And the whole message from today is Systemising Sales Success. But before we get started, just a little bit about me for those who I haven't met. My name is David Guest. I run Outcomes Business Group, which we started in 2001. And our focus has always been helping people grow business. And I guess what's dear to my heart about this is we've been a systemisation business forever. And our specialty is building self-managed teams. So I just want to talk a little bit about this whole idea of why we need systems within business, including sales. And this comment I picked up from a guy by the name of Ryan Deese, and he put this up on the screen, and it sort of just hit me right between the eyes. Because when we talk to people, by the way, can I just get a show of hands, those people who run their own business? Those people who run their own business? Okay, quite a lot. Excellent. Those people who work for someone else, can I get a quick show of hands for those guys? One or two. What about those who run their business but wish they worked for someone else? Is anyone? There's always a couple, right? This statement really stuck with me because when people run businesses, there's two ways you can run a business. You can be self-employed, or you can have a business that has team members in it. And there's not one that's better than the other. It's just a reality check. Because for those people who are self-employed, this statement runs true. The more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. And what we're talking about here is the value of the business once you move on. And so I just want to talk a bit about this dilemma, because when people are self-employed, and being self-employed is great, it gives you freedom, it gives you lifestyle choices, but it does have some limitations. And the limitations are that usually when someone is self-employed, they're generally pretty busy. When I talk to people in business, I say, how's business? They go, we're flat out, we're busy, we've got lots of stuff on. And it's usually made up of operations, which is the big circle, and a little bit of admin, which they have to do to get paid. This thing called sales and marketing is small or non-existent. And for most self-employed people, they say, the reason I don't do a lot of sales and marketing is most of my work comes from word of mouth or referral. Who's in that camp? Word of mouth or referral is the majority of your business. Awesome. That means you do a great job. But it also means that you may have a capacity issue, because if all of your work comes from word of mouth or referral, what it means is that you don't have a volume knob on your lead flow. You don't have this ability to increase the number of clients you have instantly. You need to build. You need to build over time. So the real issue that I see is this, right? So the reason these people have such a small marketing and sales effort is because they're stuck in the middle. And if I'm stuck in the middle of my business and I'm already flat out busy, then the issue is if I want to grow it, I get busier. So most self-employed people reach capacity, and when they reach this capacity, they sort of get stuck there. What I see is if you want to build a business that has value, you've got to start thinking in terms of sales, marketing, operations, and admin need to have equal attention. But here's the special thing that you need to have happen. You need to start thinking about, how do I remove myself? How do I remove myself from the business? Now, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can automate, you can systemize, but ultimately, the way to do it that we've seen works most successfully is building a self-managed team. Now, building a self-managed team is fraught with danger, because who has a team already? Can I just get a show of hands for those people who have their own team already? Okay, a few of you. Excellent, thank you. These are the three problems that we normally see. The first one is it's hard to find good people. It's really hard to find them. And especially in the last year or two, recruitment has been a tough game, right? There's been more people, there's been more jobs available than people looking for work. The second thing we see is that a lot of employees can be seen as ineffective. And what I mean by that is that they get stuck. You get stuck with employees that you're paying for their time, but the productivity that they're producing does not make it a good return on investment. And the last one we see is churn. So, we build up our team, we get some great people on board. And one of the problems that we have is that we train them up and they get taken by someone else. So they end up being poached. The solution to this is pretty simple. If you're building a business that you want to see value in, the first thing is you need to know that you'll be recruiting as long as you're in business. So I think you need to build a recruitment engine. You need to be constantly looking for employees. You need to be finding the right people, getting the right talent on the bus, and making sure that you're making inroads with it. The second thing is, in terms of effectiveness of your team, we need to have a performance framework. And this is what we're going to be tuning in on today, is how to create a sales system for sales success. And the last thing with churn is to make sure that you've got some level of team stability system, so that you're making sure that the team members that you do have, the right ones, are staying. Because getting team members on board gives you leverage. but getting the wrong team members on board can be one of the biggest problems that people in small business face. So let's talk about what we're going to cover today. We're going to be working in this top right-hand corner of this image, which is the performance framework. And we're going to be talking about how you design your sales process, how you delegate sales, and how you track sales success. So when we talk about the rest of this is what we do in our business. We help people build self-managed teams. Now, I know this is super short notice. Jim Rohn said it really well. He said, wish your life were easier, just wish you were better. We're running a workshop tomorrow, and I know it's 1 day's notice, called Self-Managed Team Mastery, and it's on tomorrow at this exact time. If anyone's interested in attending that, I might get Ira to pop the link into the chat box. So if you're available tomorrow morning to learn about how to build a self-managed team, this will be an awesome event. If you're not available, what I'd suggest you do is register, and we'll put you on the wait list for the next one that comes up. It's a no-cost event. It's just to help people who are looking to build teams. So let's talk about today. Today's topic, Systemizing Sales Success, is literally about how do we build a sales process. Now, I just want to do a bit of an overview of what this is going to look like. We have 3 great presenters, but today's presentation is going to talk about sales funnels. Now, some of you will be familiar with the funnel image that looks like this. Today, we're going to split it into 3. The first part of any sales process is that you need to have leads. You need to have leads coming in. Now, we call this top of funnel. And top of funnel for most businesses, if your word of mouth or referral is done by your ability to go and network and to find people. Today, we're going to talk about how you can get leads in alternative ways, and we're going to be talking about how you do it through email marketing. Now, top of funnel is lead generation. So this is where leads come from. The second part of this process is what we call middle of funnel, or MOFU, middle of funnel. So top of funnel, middle of funnel. Middle of funnel is where your leads come into your business and you start building relationships and you start building rapport and you start building trust. Now, the importance of middle of funnel is it's also what's known as a nurture campaign. Nurture. So where do we take our leads through a process so that we can build a relationship over time? And the last piece of this puzzle is going to be what we call the bottom of funnel, or BOFU, BOFU. And bottom of funnel is where conversion happens. And this is where the sale actually occurs. So these are the 3 elements we're going to be going through this morning. We have 3 excellent presenters that are going to talk about their strategies and ideas in this area. And we're going to be using this platform just to help you build your sales process. So what I'd like to do is, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first presenter for today. A lot of you already know who Yi Lin is because she invited you here today. Yi Lin is a master at email marketing, and her topic today is going to be mastering B2B cold email marketing, spam-resistant tactics to engage ideal client profiles and build your sales pipeline. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to hand over to Yi Lin, and let's hear what she can share with us about how we can generate more leads. Over to you, Yi Lin.
Okay, let me share my screen. And there we go. Can everyone see the screen? Yep, perfect. Okay, so good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to talk about this topic on cold emailing today because it's not often well understood or talked about as a form of lead generation. So I'm really hoping that everyone leaves the session with a clear picture of how it all works and how it can actually really benefit your business. So just a little bit about me. I'm a digital mentor for the Melbourne Innovation Centre, a Victorian government program. I've got 15 years of experience in marketing, and I work with a range of clients from some of the franchises here in Victoria across different industries like property, globally as well, with clients in Ireland and in the US. So this is what I wanted to ask everyone. What are your impressions and thoughts on cold emailing? Right? Have a think about it, because a lot of times cold email done badly is exactly like that picture on the right. It is, synonymous with spam, which means like cold email basically done badly. Now, cold email, if you do it well, though, it actually opens a way for people with something valuable to share and to connect with others. And this is quite often, this is good, and it's quite often quite rare to find. So how do you actually send good emails? I want everyone to sort of get that, understand that concept. And exactly like what you see in this picture, a good email has to be very relevant to the receiver. And I'll show you in the next few slides how you actually do that. Something to keep in mind, what cold email is. It's not an email blast or a newsletter. That's quite often what people confuse it as. Email marketing, you often have people opting in and it's a solicited email that you're sending out to your database. Cold email, on the other hand, is unexpected. And it is, targeted, highly targeted, but you don't want it to come across as spam. Spam is generic. It's, you're sort of sending it to everyone without any personalization. So that's something to keep in mind. The reality of cold email, though, not everyone is going to need your service at that point in time. If you get them at the right time, then it's going to be highly specific to them, because if they need your service, then they would actually respond to that email. So that's why sometimes it is a bit of a volume game. The average ratio for a lead that you contact to actually booking a sales call is between sort of 0.5 to 1.5. And the timing does matter when you actually get a hold of your prospects. So this is just an example of a case study. This is probably one of my best case studies so far. This was for Inspire platform, which is an NDIS driver license program. They're very targeted campaign that was reaching out to support coordinators. And in just 10 days of this campaign being live, we've actually got them 24 sales qualified leads. And they had a huge number of responses, 30% positive responses that actually wanted more information on their service. And over the last, I think it was 6 weeks, they had about close to 80 sales calls, which was a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because they couldn't handle that amount of volume of bookings coming through. But what I want to say with this case study example is that they were highly niched and they knew their target audiences really well and what problems they were solving. And that's why you can get such a good response. So this goes back to my initial point that every message that you send out must be really relevant to your target audience. So the benefits of cold email, a lot of people will be asking me why should I go with cold email? And these are the few key reasons why cold email can be beneficial for your business. Number one, it's cost effective and scalable. There's the ability to send out hundreds and hundreds of emails, in a day, in a week. You can do that with cold email, right? And precise targeting. This is what I really like about cold email. You are able to actually target the decision maker for the business. And instead of sending generic emails to info at or reception at, you want to be talking to the key decision makers. And with cold email, you can do that. And the people, again, that come through and respond to cold email have quite a high intention, and they're generally quite sales qualified leads. Okay. Now, how do you build an effective cold email campaign? There are probably, I would say, 3 to 4 main things that you want to be looking at. And I'll talk through each one. The first one is email deliverability. You want to make sure your emails don't end up in spam. And actually, people actually read them and it goes into their inbox. And the other pillar that's really key here is how you get your lead list, your target audience. And the third one is the messaging. How do you get that messaging that's relevant to the target audience? And to effectively build that whole system, there are tools that can help you do that. And I'll walk through the tools as well. I do have a guide. If anyone wants that, you can scan that, or I'll put that in the chat after this, that walks through the technical aspects of cold email. So feel free to download that. Now, with the foundation, let's talk about email deliverability. How do you make sure your emails don't end up in spam? One of the things a lot of people do with cold email, what they think is cold email, they take that same email, they write a spiel all about themselves, and they take and copy and paste that and send it to a whole database of people. That's one surefire way that your email is going to end up in spam. So there are a few things, and these are probably the top 3 that I would recommend that you do to avoid that happening. In any cold email, you want to avoid any spammy practices. And when I say clean codes, you don't want to have links, you don't want to have pictures or attachment in that first email that you send out. Okay, that will definitely put you into that spam folder. Now, the second thing is spam words. Look out for spam words, things that say I'm going to make you money, or this is free, or there's a guarantee there. These words tend to automatically flag the email providers. and put your email into the spam folder as well. And the other thing is replication. Again, don't just copy and paste everything across. You ideally want to use personalization. The most simple thing that you could do is the first name. That's one of the easy personalizations that you can do to make sure that your emails are different with every single one that you send out. There's a lot more to email deliverability, which I probably won't cover today, but these I would say are the top 3 ones. Now, you can always test your email reputation when you send out those emails to see how whether your email is going to end up in spam. So there's 2 apps that you can use, like Glock app or MailGenius. MailGenius is probably the easy sort of free one that you could do. I'll show you an example of what kind of results you would get with MailGenius. So this is one of the clients' campaign that we tested. It gives you a score out of 100. Now, if you're not getting it, say, at least a 95 out of 100, it's very likely that your email will be ending up in spam and people are not going to read it. So if you go through this test, it gives you, it gives you at the bottom here, you can see where you're failing and what needs to be fixed. Okay, so go through each one and then, work through them to try to get the score back up to that 95 and above. Now, the foundation, building a list. This is probably one of the most critical parts of any cold email campaign. It's important that you really understand your target audience. If you don't understand your target audience or you have the wrong assumption of what they need, it's likely that your messaging and who you target, it's just going to fall into death. It's just going to go into the abyss because it's not going to be relevant to them. So make sure you really do a deep dive of your target audience analysis before you build that lead list. Okay. Now, there are tools that you could do and use to actually pull out a list of databases of your target audiences. So there are tools like Apollo.io, Hunter, Lusher that you could do. And it's quite granular. You can go down by job title. You could go down by, where they're based, even the department they're in, the industry that they're in, and so on. So it's quite a good way to build a list of B2B clients, prospects. But what you do though is once you get that lead list from the database, once you extract it out, you need to validate those emails because not all the emails are going to be, won't be ideal for sending to. So a tool like Million Verifier here is going to help you clean up that lead list to ensure that you're not going to get, emails that are not valid or they're going to bounce. So this is an example of the results that you get. Once you download that contact from a database like Apollo, you upload it to Million Verifier, it gives you a score and it tells you which are the good, risky, and bad emails. So for most cases, I would say just download the good emails and only send emails to the ones that are in good health. This would prevent you risking your email reputation and sort of burning your own domain. Okay. Now, the third one, this one's an interesting one. So how do you craft a compelling message and how do you get good open rates? It all comes down to your email body and your subject line. If you do it right, like our email open rates are close to 50 to 80%, and we get reply rates that are between 7 to 15%. This is an example of a spammy email. I'm sure all of you would have received something like this. Everyone trying to sell the SEO or website building services. And it clearly is, they just write, there's no personalization. They've copied and pasted across every single person, to every single person. So this is an example of a spammy email. Now I'll show you an example next. This is an email that I sent out to my prospects. This is an ideal first email structure. You can see the little pictures here. This is the sequence that you want to have. In any cold email, it should be short, sharp, and direct with the messaging. So I usually follow this formula. A, get attention. When you show their need, it's talking about their pain points. Building trust, this is where you're adding your case studies or any facts or figures or quantifiable results that can show your, how you're different and what your solution does. And then this last one is usually a call to action. So that's usually how I would structure the cold email campaigns. And you'll notice that if you look at the top, the subject line is personalized. I add their name to it and I add their company name as well. So all of this, and even the first sentence, because what people see in the inbox, they see the name and they see your the subject line, and then they see the subtext. So when people see that, it sparks their curiosity because they've been going, oh, who's this person? They know my name, they know my business, they know what my business does. So they want to open that email. So that's usually how I structure my cold email. And what you notice is I don't have any links or anything in there, even in my email signature, right? Now, this is just an example of the first email. In any email, cold email, one email isn't going to be enough. Like we all say, the money is in the follow-up. You need to be sending at least that 2 more additional follow-up emails to get people to respond. Okay. Now, just mindful of time. So with the automation tools, a tool's going to help you really sort of scale up the amount of people that you're reaching out to in an effective manner. And it allows you to do that personalization. It allows you to measure your campaign success and so on. So this is an example of one of the tools that we use. There are a lot of tools out there. Instantly.ai. So what this does, you can connect your email accounts to Instantly.ai, and you can upload your database into this platform to do those email, the cold email out. What it allows you to do, you're allowed to create multiple campaigns. So what's important is that split testing of your campaigns in order to find, you want to determine if your target list is right, if your offer or your messaging is right and relevant. You could use this to get the results and measure your campaign performance. So for example, you can see the stats at the bottom. It shows me the open rates, which means that it tells me that I guess your emails are actually getting into the inbox. That's the first thing. And with the link click here, it tells me if people are clicking on the call to action within my email, and the number of reply rates as well. So these are the few key metrics you want to be tracking when you're sending out your cold emails. Now, just a note here, in the long run, I generally don't use these tracking metrics because they can impact email deliverability. But when you launch a new campaign, it is a good idea to have this just to know as a baseline where you're at with your campaigns. Okay. Now, next one. So just a summary. How do you build an effective lead gen campaign using cold email? The first one is making sure your emails are spam resistant. So make sure you test it with the tools like MailGenius. Number 2, build the right lead list. You want to be very clear on who your target audiences are and who the decision makers are when you build that list. And the third one is the campaign message, making sure that your message is personalized and relevant to that target audience that you're speaking out to. And lastly, you want to use tools like Instantly AI that could help you automate the process so you're not having to send out each email one by yourself. Okay. So these are the case study examples that I'll just share. This was a plumbing company, a nationwide plumbing company. In 30 days, we contacted about 2,300 people. And when I say the leads who viewed the offer, these are the open rates. And the responses received were close to 20%. And we managed to book in that 30 days, that 11 sales calls. And in 8 weeks, we managed to book 39 sales calls for them. I like to put this in because I built the system for my own business. And this is what has been the most effective way of getting leads for my own business. And I'm getting, 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 sales calls every week booked in. So this just goes to show that it is a very effective way, especially in the B2B space, to actually get leads for your business. So a lot of you, I know, would have either tried cold email, you worked hard on building your business, but you either had no success or you're sort of struggling to really sort of effectively build up that lead generation piece of, for your business. So you don't really need a database to start with or write great copy. So we can help you assess how effective this lead gen strategy can be for you in a short call. If you're finding it really hard to break through that revenue plateau, or if you're struggling to get more appointments, why not just book in a chat and we can assess this to see if this is a right option for you. All right. So that's pretty much it from me. I thought I'd open it up and see if anyone had any questions.
There was 2 questions, Yilin. There was one question that came up about some numbers, but I think you've covered that one now. That was Keith. He asked the question when you showed the first case study, how many people did you send out to? Can you give us a sense of conversion rates?
So it depends. Like I think I was saying earlier, it was between 0.5 to 1.5 on average. It does depend on the industry, it does depend on your offer and your target audience as well. Like the best case study I got was that 3.5% conversion rate from there into sales calls. And even for myself, I was getting a 2.5% roughly from lead to sales call ratio.
Great.
Yeah.
Of how many do you, hang on, you keep scrolling. There's quite a few questions coming in. How many do you need to be sending out if doing it well? So
how many do I need to set out to be doing well?
Yeah.
I guess it's reverse engineering the numbers and depending on how many appointments you need. So if you're taking that ratio of 0.5% or 1%, then, for every 1,000 emails, you're getting, that 10 appointments. So it's just reverse engineering them, the numbers to determine how many you need to send out.
Okay, and Pauline's asked the question, what's the best platform to use for mail outs?
Okay, so in terms of platforms, we normally get a Google Workspace email and a Microsoft email account, and then we link it up to our tools like Instantly to help send it out on a larger scale. So hopefully that answers the question.
I hope so. Someone's asked if you can share your tip sheet again. So if you can just drop that into the chat box as we keep going. I love this. I think, generating leads proactively, so going out to market and just knocking on people's doors. We used to use telephones and cold call. We used to door knock. Email is just another platform, but I guess and you touched on it very well, cold outreach is not spam. Cold outreach is literally knocking on someone's door and saying, hey, I've looked at your website or I've looked at your business and I've got some ideas and I wanted to share those with you. And I think when you talked about, get all the spam stuff out, because sometimes I think people get lazy, right? And they just say, you know what, just broadcast. And I think what it does is it actually has a reverse effect of what we'd like to have, which is actually knocking on someone's door and having a conversation with them. So I guess the whole idea is cheat sheet will come. Anyone on this call who hasn't had a look at cold outreach email, I think it's worth investigating. And Yilin's got a very sort of structured approach to this. She's been doing it for a long time. And I think when people are scared of it and saying, well, we don't want to be seen as spammers, well, here's the reality. If you are spam, you won't be seen. Okay. Most email systems will block you out straight away. So the idea is to do the research, to do the analysis, to work out who your target market is, and to really key in your message. And this is something Yilin's really good at. So can I get you to do two things? You put up a link for people to be able to contact you. Can you drop that into the chat box as well? And the second one was just your cheat sheet. And there's one more question here. How would a platform like Instantly AI be different to something like HubSpot, which also does email campaigns? Are they more or less the same?
They're not exactly the same. I think a lot of these platforms like MailChimp, HubSpot, they are focused on doing your traditional sort of email campaigns. With Instantly, you're able to actually do, without getting too technical, you're able to do all the spin text so that every email is different. You're able to drip out the email so that it mimics as much of your normal human behavior as much as possible. Whereas with things like HubSpot and MailChimp, you're sending a mass email at one shot to everybody.
Yeah.
So tools like that allow you to do these sort of customizations.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Very good. What we might do, I would like to hear from everybody. So I'd like to know what your top 1 or 2 lessons have been from Yilin into the chat box. If we can just get everyone to just type into the chat box, what have been the most valuable things that you picked up from Yilin's presentation? Just 1 or 2 things. That will help other people who've just jumped on the call. And let's see if we can get some ideas there as we sort of transition to our next presenter. So really, we've talked about one strategy for generating top of funnel. There's many, many other ones, but I think email is underrated because it's low cost. It's effective. It gets into people's inbox. And if you do it right, you're going to be talking to people. We've got lots and lots of ideas coming in, keeping it short, no links. Very good, Yiling. New perspective on cold outreach. Yep, cold outreach does not equal spam. And for those people who think it does, that's because it is. So you've got to actually change your messaging and make sure that you're not spam. Great presentation, spam resistant tools. There's some great tools there as well, I think, which is really useful for people. So everyone, let's give Yiling a nice round of applause. Excellent presentation. I love that. What I'd like to do, just being mindful of time, is I'd like to switch to our next presenter. So the next piece that we're going to be talking about is this middle of funnel area. So middle of funnel is this piece here. And this is all about nurture. And so I'd like to introduce everybody to Craig Edwards. Craig is going to be talking about using the power of automation to increase efficiencies, opportunities, and enhance the customer journey. Now, I will suggest one thing right here. Having a CRM and having an intelligent CRM that actually allows you to manage this workflow, so the lead nurture area is critical, because it's too easy to lose people in the mix. We've got too many channels that we work with now. We've got too many people trying to communicate with us. We've got a lot of high-level communication occurring at that top of funnel. So I'd like to hand over to Craig, and he's going to be talking about how we capture all these leads and we use a really clever way to manage those through. So over to you, Craig.
Thanks, David. I'm just going to share my screen. Good to see everyone. Some familiar faces here. Okay, so as David outlined, I'm going to talk about creating some greater opportunity and efficiency using automation. Now, just quick before I dive into a bit background on me, for the people who don't know me, I've been doing this for over 27 years. I've run a couple of agencies within those 20 years. I mean, I started out from the print days now into all the digital space and now the advent of AI. But essentially now we're using automation AI to enhance our sales and marketing processes. So what that sort of looks like, before I dive into the efficiency and the opportunities, so I'm actually going to talk about the sales journey. And David's already talked about sales funnels, and you hear terms of pipelines and stuff like that. But today I'm going to talk about a sales journey or a buyer's journey, if you haven't heard that term before. And what that essentially means is what we're trying to do, like any sort of business, we're trying to get that ideal prospect from A to B. And B meaning that buy close stage. And that can mean a variety of things. You know, it could be actually closing a deal, or you're selling an actual product or service, or you're just trying to get them to sign get an approval for a quote, or even sign a new contract or purchase order. So, but the challenge is always in a B2B scenario, how do we get there? So a lot of that is that running a business, you know the various stages that a customer has to go through, from the cold to the warm to the hot, etc. But there's always a challenge that when you're dealing in a B2B scenario, you've got to factor in those lead times. Now, some B2B buyer journeys can take a month, some can take over a year. One of our clients in the construction space, their lead times from initial inquiry to signing a contract was 18 months. And, you know, if you look at the guts of all that, that's lots of emails, lots of calls, lots of meetings, lots of material that's got to be sent. I mean, I'd be interested to hear people's comments on how their lead times are for signing a new deal or signing a new contract, and all the inner workings of a sales process that the time that it takes to put new emails together, time it takes to put new materials together in order to move them along the sales journey, but also move along into eventually closing that deal. So, but depending on the time frame of that pipeline or journey, but always the greatest challenge is how do we keep them there? You don't want them to initially make interest and then fall away from the journey or go to another competitor. So with automation, we can help keep that buyer interested, keep them on track, keep them engaged, move them through those various stages, the warm, hot, cold, or the interested and the consideration stage, eventually taking them through to the buyer, the deal stage. So I'm going to come back to that a little bit more, because I'm going to dive into the efficiency part first, because that'll then lead to how do we answer that question of keeping them engaged and moving them through the pipeline using automation. So, but with automation, essentially, is first and foremost is to create efficiency, because we want a system that's just going to work. It's not to say turnkey, but it's because we've got smaller teams nowadays, especially in a post-COVID world. We've got smaller sales teams, smaller marketing teams. This is where we can use the advent of marketing and sales technology to do a lot of the work for us, especially the heavy lifting. So I wanted to step you through a bit of a before and after scenario, because if I use that same analogy of, you know, taking a prospect from A to B, I'm going to show you two options here. So this is where I guess the traditional way, where we had to do things manually, especially in a scenario where we've got longer buying cycles. So, you know, maybe you've done some work with Yiling and you've eventually got that contact of that new lead. That's basically got them to the inquiry stage, but then you've got to send out some additional emails to the follow-up and maybe just to say, hey, Craig, inquiry, how can we help? Let's have a chat, deep dive chat. And then they don't respond, or they don't call back, or they don't respond to your emails. Then you got to remind yourself, and you're doing a lot of this manually by writing notes or setting your own little spreadsheets together of how to remind yourself, oh, I've got to create an email, I've got to follow him up. And then if he doesn't respond again, I've got to send a second set of emails again, just to get them into the qualifying stage of understanding their business, their needs and wants, their budgets, their timings, and the products and services that they're after. But then once you've done all that, okay, we've got them they're qualified, they're a good fit. Then we've got to send some more material over. So it might be some brochures, it might be some other case studies, it might be some other spec sheets or resources that's really going to validate what they're after and what they're looking for. And then you might have to send some more emails or more phone calls to say, hey, Craig, did you get that brochure that I sent you? Did you get that spec sheet? Did you have a look at it? And there's all this tennis match going on that I'm sure you've all experienced. I certainly have. And then just to get them to consideration stage. And this is when you actually put them a pricing an estimate for them so that you can actually start to talk about closing the deal. And then obviously the price goes out. You've got to send more follow-ups and reminders. Then there might be some more decision makers brought in. Then there's more reminders. And then we've hopefully get to that final stage of signing the contract and closing the deal. Now, there's lots of time, energy, and effort and note taking that's all done in that manual process. So if we flip that and talk about another way of, well, using that exact same journey, but doing it in a more automated way. So we've taken out the red areas and turned those areas into blue because those areas can be automated. So the initial query comes in, bang, they get an initial SMS or automated email to say, thanks, Mr. Customer, we've got your inquiry. Here's a time to book a meeting. The meeting is set. We can actually set the meeting itself automatically. We can even get AI to qualify. Now, this is where AI can be quite smart because we can program it to learn and understand your business, but also we can set some parameters for the AI to ask the prospects some key parameters of budgets and services and offerings and timings, all that sort of stuff, to then qualify, automate sending them back some material, automate setting some further meetings, and eventually moving through to the closing stage. Now, I've still kept some areas colored because what that means is we can't essentially, or we don't want to automate the whole entire process because the human element must be still part of that sales process. The human needs to be there to build rapport, build the trust, and build relationships. Bots and automation can't do that. And I'm sure Ben, when he comes to his presentation, he'll attest to this, that this is where the human will jump in and actually physically close the deal, but the bot's not going to close the deal for you. So that's very important. But essentially, 78 to 80% of that whole process can be automated. And what that does is, well, essentially it can stop leaky leads. As we say, the inquiry comes in and then all of a sudden they disappear. It moves them through those buyer journeys from warm to hot to cold, to cold to warm to hot, or from interested into consideration stage. It streamlines your whole entire sales process. So even if you hire a new salesperson the next day, you've got an exact process of how to convert someone from interested into a decision or signing a contract stage. Plus, we're also collecting data along the way. We're getting sales intelligence in terms of what they've looked at, what they've clicked on, what videos they've watched, and really understand their buyer profile and what their needs and wants. And the beauty of all this is it can be replicated. So imagine doing that first one all manually for one customer. Where with automation, we can do that for 10, we can do that for 20. And I'm going to talk about that a bit more later. And also, we have the ability to be agile. So it's not just a linear process. So if someone doesn't open a particular email, then we might just set some automations in place just to remind and say, hey, Craig, did you get that email? And again, I haven't sent it. The automations are all sent it through, but we're still pushing along the buyer's journey and pushing along the sales funnel. But all in all, with efficiency, this using automation can essentially save your sales team, whether it's just you or your actual team itself, but they can ultimately save about 5 to 6 hours a week just by cutting down all those manual and mundane tasks, filling out spreadsheets, sending all more emails, setting up your reminders, more tasks, setting up appointments. Imagine the time you'll save when it's just all automated for you. So now I'm going to jump into the second part, which is, okay, well, efficiency is great and timing's, saving some time and energy and cost is great too, but how do we actually build on that? How can we use automation to even create more opportunity? Well, essentially, even in today's tough climate, business and opportunity is still everywhere. and now we can use automation to really harness that. So, but one of the biggest things I say to my customers, the biggest number one opportunity that's out there right now is speed to response. Now, I'm not sure about how you guys interact with some of your customers and even just your day-to-day dealings with buying a product or service, but for me, for some of the clients that we've worked with, just by improving their take-up efficiency through contact forms or other lead generation like downloads, etc., it can increase their sales conversion by nearly 400%. You know, but I just get frustrated when I'm looking for a product or service and I make an inquiry on their website and I hear nothing. I just get radio silence, or I leave a call on their message machine and then I don't get a call back 2 or 3 weeks later. I mean, that I would have basically gone to another competitor because they didn't get back to me so promptly. So it's very important that we do that, because after the 5 minutes, and I'm sure Ben's got some more details about this, but after that first 5 minutes, your tendency to qualify and acquire that new customer can drop by 80%. So it's important to have that instant response. So whether it's just by having an instant email to say, hey, Craig, we've got your email, let's book a time, or we'll come back to you in another time to talk about more products and services you might want to talk, or it might be an SMS. Whatever way you do it, the best, just jump on that lead straight away is the key thing. Now, I just want to break down, talking about opportunity more broadly, but I'm just going to break them down into 2 sections, because there's lots of ways we can help with automation to build opportunity, but I'm going to put it into 2 parts. Now, there's the customer acquisition stage, which Yi-Ling was sort of talking about, and we can use automation to do a lot of that stuff. But again, contact forms, that's a number one. If you haven't got automation in your contact form, I implore you to do it. I mean, I can show you some steps on how to do that up to today's sections. Missed callbacks. I'm sure with other inquiries, if it's yours, just a one-man sales team and you're missing sales calls because you're on a Zoom call or like a webinar like today, you can even automate to say, hey, we've got your call, we'll give you a call back shortly. QR codes. If you're doing events, these are a must. We're all used to QR codes now. You can scan them and automation triggers go in place. I won't go through each one, but there's a whole plethora of ways we can build in automation that does all this for you without you have to lift a finger. You know, if you're looking to retain customers, like having an onboarded sequence once you've signed a customer, getting Google reviews. I mean, it's just another basic way. You've done a job, you've done a great job, babe, and your customer likes it. Oh, by the way, here's an automated email just to them to leave a Google review for your business. And plus, you've got other ways to upsell, give feedback and surveys, drip campaigns, SMS marketing. There's a lot of ways we can automate just to make life a bit easier. But also, you know, do have the ability to build in automation for operations as well. So but purely for today, we're just talking about sales. Now, this is where before we even start doing all the automations, we really start to drill down on the client's database, because your database is key. And David touched on it before with having a CRM, which I'll explain in a minute. But if you this is where we can really start to drill down into your database and basically 10, 12 times automate all of those contacts that are in there. So like Yi-Ling talked about acquiring new customers, that can be automated like she just explained. But also, you know, if you've got cold prospects, if you've got hot prospects, if they're looking for a key product or service, we can automate some sequences to move them along their funnel. Whether they're ready to buy now or ready to buy later, we can move them along. Or even one of our clients has got a really old database and they haven't touched them for 6 months. Let's put some automation to start to re-engage and start having conversations again with those older clients. This automation can service from cold to warm to hot to new to old type clients. But as Dave pointed out, for all this to work and to build on more opportunity, you need a CRM. If you haven't got one, get one. There's a whole plethora of CRMs out there. We work in a variety of different platforms. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got one is the number one rule. I mean, there's lots of free ones out there too, but if you haven't got one, I really implore businesses to move away from spreadsheets, because CRMs will do far much more than just collecting names and emails. So going back to my original point of, okay, well, how do we do that, Craig? How do we move someone from A to B? And this is where we use the CRM to come in and help build and understand the customer. It will build a profile. It's not just collecting names and numbers anymore. It will build a customer profile. It'll understand whether it's cold, warm, or hot. It'll identify its needs and wants. It'll also understand whether you're interested in consider a decision stage. And then that's good, because if the CRM can do all that, the sales team might just go, well, I've got enough in my decision stage stockpile, but I want to see all my leads in my considered that are sitting on the fence and still in my consideration stage. So they can just isolate their database or CRM to then look at who's in that funnel and move them along. Automation sends out personalized material. Again, we're not sending out blanket marketing or just the general EDMs, all that stuff that people get, but we actually get personalized messaging based on their needs and wants. So if a customer or if a prospect's interested in widget X, they get marketing material based on widget X. If they're looking for widget Y, then they get widget Y. So it makes them a far more personalized experience. Plus, we're grading them along the way through those buy stages, through those customer journeys, ultimately leading to either sales conversation or a sales conversion, or even better still, having a return purchase. So you've got a real journey, you've got a real step-by-step approach of how automation can lead them down that path. And better still, customers nowadays are expecting much more of a personalized experience through their sales processes than just blanket marketing material that's just quite generic and not tailored to their needs and wants. So essentially, to summarize all this, if you've got a CRM, or if you haven't got one, get one, but they're building in with some automated sales systems can basically bring customers coming back on a bit of a treadmill and keep them coming back for more, whether it's new, whether it's old, whether it's existing, looking to upsell, cross-sell, looking for products and services over time. And the beauty of all this is it's working 24/7. You don't have to worry about doing those cold outreaches like Yiling was doing just in office hours. You can do it 24/7. It's all working in the background. If you want to send out some particular marketing material for various prospects or just to keep them engaged through your buying cycle, it's all happening in the background, even on weekends. And also the beauty of all this is it doesn't matter if you're a one-man person or if you're a 10 or 20-man team, or if you've got one client or many clients, automation is designed to scale for sales. So, and this is the beauty of it. You don't have to do those manual tasks anymore. You don't have to fill out those spreadsheets anymore. So imagine a scenario, even if you're a one-man business and you're trying to do those long lead times manually for one client, this has the ability, you could do 10, you could do 20 at a time because it's all automated, and all you need to do is just turn up in meeting and sign those contracts. How good would that be? So if you'd like to know more, this is the end of my presentation, but if you're looking to simplify and streamline, or if you're looking to integrate a lot of this automation with the existing CMS, or you need a flowing system of marketing and sales processes, happy to have a chat. You can scan my code. I'll put my meeting link in the chat. Again, just interested in having chat and learning more about your business and how we can optimize things, create that efficiency, and create more opportunity.
Yeah, great, fantastic. What we might do, because CRM's dear to my heart, I've been playing with CRM since the old days of DOS, if anyone remembers what that is. But we used to have just a character-based one. But for me, like if you run a business and you don't have a CRM, you're leaving money on the table. Your statistic on speed, I think these days people are browsing at all hours of the day. And also we're going global, which means people are on your website while you're asleep. And if they ask a question and there's not an automated answer, they feel like they're being let down. So I do believe most people are undervaluing the importance of keeping in touch with people on a timely basis. And your stat, I think the 391%, I think it's a conservative number, because I know when someone asks a question, if you answer it immediately, you engage in conversation. If you wait 8 hours because it happened at night and you get in the morning, the chances of continuing that conversation diminish quite dramatically. So I believe that anybody who doesn't have a clear picture of how to use their CRM, or if you even currently have one that you're not getting the most out of, you need to speak to someone like Craig. He's going to help you design your sales pipeline, because generating leads is one thing. And there was a couple of questions around quality of leads. And I'll suggest the more outbound you go, the more variable the quality of leads will be. And you need a way to nurture people, because when you first contact someone, the next thing that has to happen is you have to build trust and rapport. And you can do it through video, you can do it through email, you can do it through testimonial, but you need a communication channel that's open and dynamic so that it's accessing those people as well. Let's into the chat box. What's been the top 2 lessons that you picked out of Craig's presentation? What's resonated with you? What's vibed with you in terms of what Craig's been talking about? Also, Craig, I think you did drop in a link to your booking calendar, or if you could, into the chat box for those people who would like to chat with you.
I did,
one thing you'll notice about today's presentations is the presenters are very candid, right? The truth of the matter is you can't help someone who doesn't need help. And often for people selling products or services, the idea is to assess a person's need and see if we can fill that. And you'll hear that from Yi Lin. She was very realistic about her numbers. And you'll hear it from Craig, who's really not sitting here saying you should buy a CRM. He's just saying you need a CRM because it's how you're going to communicate with people. So for anyone who'd like to get in touch with Craig, his contact details are in the chat. Let's hear some of the things. Speed, automation plus AI, follow-up automation, 391% is amazing. Absolutely. While the idea of doing business 24/7, auto messaging needs to also frame the time that you're available. Yep. So obviously people aren't going to call you in the middle of the night, but sometimes they just do want that information. Automation is definitely scalable. And I think one thing, going right back to the start, is the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. Putting a sales automation system in place will increase the value of your business, improve your conversion on your pipeline, and make you a happier person. So I think it's crazy not to have it if you're in business, because lead nurture is one of those areas where you do build relationships over time. So let's give Craig a nice round of applause for an awesome presentation. His microphone was sort of fading in and out. Someone commented on. He's going to go and sort that out after the call. What I'd like to do right now is keep the momentum up. At this point in time, you guys have all heard from our presenters talking about how to generate leads through cold email outreach. We've talked about nurture, middle of funnel. And really, what do you do with those leads when they come in, and how do you make sure that you're fully engaged with them? The last, and probably the one that everyone wants to know about, is how do I improve my conversion rates? Now, I'll give you a little secret. Conversion, you can't make people buy anything, right? The truth of the matter is people will buy when they're ready to buy. Your job is to be there to assist them in that process. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Ben Lai. I've known Ben for a little while. He's a sales trainer, and his presentation today is going to be how to create a simple 3-step sales system that converts. So I'd like to hand over to Ben so that we can tackle this bottom of funnel, this conversion. So over to you, Ben.
Good morning, and thank you, David. Just a brief introduction to myself. I am the soft selling specialist. I am a natural introvert. I came from a career in nursing. I did sales just purely because it was a skill that I did not possess, and I knew I needed it if I wanted to start my own business. So if you feel as though you are a bit shy, you're a bit introverted, and you're afraid to be pushy, you're the kind of person that I want to work with. And the kind of results that I bring my clients, I've been looking over at my track record. Sometimes, we have to deal with that internal imposter syndrome. So one of the ways that I deal with it is by looking at my past clients. And one of the recurring themes that I've had with my clients is that I help them to double their businesses. And to that end, I'm actually just finished writing up my little story about how I managed to double my business 2 years in a row as a small business, right? So if your revenue in the last financial year was 60,000, 120,000, I can help you to double your conversion rates, or looking at all the different parts, double your revenue and your profitability within a 12-month period. Now, not everybody can do it, but I have a very strong due diligence process to make sure that for those people that we do. If you would like to hear more about this story about how I actually did it, free sign up. I'll send the PDF to you once I've had it sent to the graphic designer, and hopefully that will spark a bigger conversation later. Okay, let me know if this is displaying correctly. You can see me and the slides at the same time. Thumbs up if it's all working. Excellent. Okay, today's topic is a 3-step sales system that converts. So what I'm going to share with you today, I'm not going to hold anything back. This is what I teach my clients, and this is what I use to get them to that doubling their revenue point. I love this photo. So at a networking function, One of the photographers took this snapshot. It perfectly encapsulates my personality in terms of being an introvert. How I present on stage is very different to how I am in crowded situations. So just to bring that point home, if you feel like you are a bit of an introvert, you don't want to be pushy, we should probably have a chat if you want to increase your sales. All right, what are we going to cover today? Before we talk about any sales techniques, we need to address this thing about our mindset around sales and selling. So then we'll go through the next 3 steps, which is the consultation phase, then the presentation phase, and then the close. All right, let's set the foundation for mindset. What comes to mind when you think about sales? Oftentimes, it's this picture. It's the dodgy used car salesperson who's trying to fob you off a deal. He might sound something like this. Hey, how's it going, mate? I got a good deal for you. I'll sell you this one cheap. I'll do a good deal for you. Right? So that's the picture that we have. We've all encountered those pushy, annoying salespeople. And so as a result, we have a negative association with selling. We think to ourselves, I don't want to be like that. So here's the problem. We tend to go on the opposite end and we don't sell at all. And that is absolutely tragic. And here's why it is tragic. To me, there is a solid moral case for sales. If you are not selling your service and your product, then arguably you are doing a disservice to society. Now, here's how it works. Whatever service you provide, you are solving a problem. When you come across someone with that problem, do you not then have some sort of responsibility to help them with that problem? I want you to think of yourself like a doctor. If you go up to a doctor and you say, I've got a headache, can you help me with my headache? And they say no, what kind of doctor would that be? And similarly, what kind of person would you be if you can solve people's problems, but you are not proactively looking for people to do that? So I want you to frame yourself this way, to start thinking of yourself like a doctor of whatever industry you're in. Now, I'm going to offer some free coaching for someone today. I want you to put into the chat section your industry, and I'll see if I can relate everything that I'm talking about today to your industry. So type into the chat box your business. Okay, so Keith was in first. Video production, Claudia was next, psychologist, fitness. Okay, we'll see if we can go with these 3 examples as we go along. All right, step number 1 is the consultation phase. Now, in the consultation phase, sometimes you have a separate sub-phase, which is the qualification, right? So the old framework in sales was known as the BANT framework. I've modified it because the BANT used to stand for budget, authority, time frame, and need. Now, it should go without saying that when you have a conversation with someone that you are going to ask whether they need your service or not. Okay, so that should be a given. That's why I've removed it. And plus Batman is more memorable. In this phase, what you want to ask is, do you have an idea about what my services typically costs? What we want to do here is we want to avoid that awkward conversation where you've gone through the entire presentation and then said, all right, our service is going to cost $20,000. And they said, oh, that's outside our budget. I only had $5,000 in the budget, right? You've just wasted your time. You've wasted everybody's time. So ask this question in the first call if you can, right? So the most artful way, the soft selling way of asking that question is, do you have an idea about what this service costs? Or another paraphrase is, have you set a budget for this? All right, let's go with video production. Okay, so for Keith, someone's interested in your video production services. You ask them, have you set a budget for this video project, right? So nice and simple. The authority question is there anybody else who is involved in this decision? Now, what will frequently happen? Let's just say Yilin's running an email campaign for you, and she happens to send an email to someone who is on the lower ranks of the organization. They have no decision-making capacity to say yes to your offer. You want to find this out nice and early so that you know how much time to invest in the relationship with this person. There's no point selling to someone if they have to ask their higher ups for permission to buy from you. Finally, it's time frame. So we got to ask them, when were you looking to solve this problem? Right? If it's 6 months out, if it's 12 months out, well, maybe we should have a conversation later rather than sooner. Okay, so that's the qualifying questions. Next is the consultation phase. Now, I can't go into too much detail given our time frame today, but broadly speaking, there are two types of questions. There's the diagnostic questions, and then there's the motivational questions. Now, here's what I find with the vast majority of my clients. We are very good at asking diagnostic questions. Okay, let's go with the psychologists. Might be quite hard to go with this, but the psychologists may ask diagnostic questions such as, oh, so you're feeling you're struggling with depression. How long have you suffered from depression? And then you may ask, what treatments have you tried? What interventions have you tried, right? So these are diagnostic questions. But a motivational question might be, how has this affected your lifestyle? How has this affected your family? How has it affected your relationships? Notice how the diagnostic questions is just figuring out if you can solve the problem, but the motivational questions figure out why they want to solve the problem. And having done a lot of work with healthcare professionals, I find that this is a very big missing piece. Another example, okay, let's go with fitness, right? So the fitness diagnostic questions might be, how much exercise do you currently do? What's your diet like? And so forth. But a motivational question might be, what's your end goal? What is it that you're trying to achieve as a result of potentially working with me? If you can figure out what their core motivation is, then you're tapping into their emotions. And here's a noteworthy phrase: emotion equals action. If you cannot tap into the person's emotions, then it's a purely logical decision. Most people are going to lack the energy and the motivation to continue. So here's a framework that you can use. And I'm going to go through this very fast. So firstly, we want to figure out people's goals. Next, we want to find out what is their reality, what are the obstacles that they're facing, and then what are the next steps, where to from here. So interestingly, this is the framework that coaches use. So David might use this when he's talking to his potential coaching clients. Coaches use this framework to actually deliver value to people. People pay coaches to ask them these questions. But if you insert this into your sales process, people are going to feel like you are already delivering value to them without even having to pay you anything. And I frequently get this from my potential clients. Sometimes they end up working with me, sometimes they don't. But in every one of these situations, they always thank me. Thank you, Ben, for taking me through this process. I now have clarity as to what it is that I need to do. Right? So ask these questions. The goal-oriented questions. Okay, let's use Wouter's example, offshore staff outsourcing. What are the end goals? What are you hoping to achieve by outsourcing? And then they might answer that, yeah, we want to scale our business and we want to lower our costs onshore. Okay, so what's your current situation? How many staff do you have? How many do you want to outsource? What are the obstacles to you working with offshore staff? And then they might say, oh, I'm not sure about working with people from the Philippines because they have the Filipino accent. All right, so that's identifying the obstacles nice and early helps you to actually understand holistically their situation so you can deal with these problems up front. And then at the end of the conversation, you may say, okay, so based on your situation, it sounds like I might be able to help you. Why don't we organize another chat so I can take you through my process? Speaking of which, presentation phase. So this is step 3 in the process, or step 2. Sometimes I get mixed up with the numbers. All right. So the big takeaway from this stage, the presentation phase, is that you need to tell a compelling story. Remember, emotion equals action. Storytelling is by far one of the most powerful ways that you can communicate your message, because not only does it provide the intellectual framework, but it also provides the emotional. So here's what you want to do in the presentation phase. You want to bridge the gap. Now, remember, you solve a particular kind of problem for a certain kind of audience. Your client is currently at this side of the bridge, and they want to get across the bridge. So your task in your presentation phase is to paint a bit of a picture and to show them the pathway to get there, the bridge. All right, let's have a look at another example, training and consultation. Well, that's right down my alley. I provide training and consultations too. Okay, so when people speak to me, they often they say, oh, Ben, we need sales training. Okay, great. And then I'll ask them all sorts of questions to figure out what their ultimate goal is. And then I usually find out, oh, it's a revenue target that they're looking for. And there might be some other things such as increasing motivation, getting the staff to feel like they're cared for. But those are usually secondary to that end goal of increasing their revenue. So let's just say someone is talking to me. They say that I want to double my revenue in the next 12 months. I say, great, here's how I'm going to do it. And I'll show them my formula. I'll talk them through my process. I'll explain why the process is the way it is so that they can get to that outcome. And I make it very clear in their minds as to how they're going to achieve that end result. Now, here's a bit of advice that may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. People talk about in sales a lot about objection handling. I would much rather do this. I would much rather proactively raise the objection before they even get a chance to ask it, right? Now, anybody here, are you priced on the premium side of the market? Anybody in the room? I can't actually see everybody. But okay, so we've got a few people. All right. So if you are the premium provider in your market, so your pricing is high up there when compared with your competitors, what I want you to do is to proactively raise that point during the presentation, or even earlier than the presentation. Here's the exact phrasing that you can use, and just personalize it for yourself. You can say, I am not the cheapest on the market, right? I am not the cheapest. The reason that we are priced this way is because we provide these extra services and we provide these extra outcomes, right? So notice how we are proactively handling that competitive situation. And once it comes time to close the sale, you don't even have to talk about it anymore. It's already been spoken about. So I've put the picture here of the big cross with arm wrestling the client. What we don't want to do is to get into an argument with them. So if they raise a problem later on, they say, oh, gee, your price is really high. And you say, no, it's not. What sort of situation are you going to get in there, right? You can't argue with someone. But so if you can't outrightly tell someone that they're wrong, the best way is to raise it proactively. As I mentioned before, telling stories is the single best way to convey relevance and to paint a vivid picture in people's mind. So at every point possible in your presentation, use a compelling story. This is why I've asked you guys to put your industries into the chat box so I can paint some sort of picture and make it more relevant for you. So what is the most effective way of using this? It's this thing called testimonials. Testimonials not only paint that picture, but they're also providing that valuable social proof so that people can have confidence in working with you. All right, we do have to speed on. Over to the close. How to help your clients to take action. This is the part that most people are most scared of. They feel like it's the hardest thing in the world, but it doesn't have to be. Now, here's a very cringeworthy stock photo for you to remember this point. Here's what you need to do at the close of the sale. Firstly, you make a recommendation. You say, based on your situation, here's what I would recommend. All right, let's use another example. Okay, speed dating. Okay, interesting. Speed dating. All right, here's what I would recommend for you. Well, I'm running an event in a few weeks. Here's the sign-up papers. I would highly recommend that you come along if you would like to meet the partner of your dreams. But you also want to assess how ready they are. So how are you feeling about this so far? Or how would you feel about our speed dating event? They may have some objections that they still have. You want to uncover them as much as possible so that you have an opportunity to address it before they make a decision. And then you finally propose, would you like to go ahead, right? Keep things nice and simple. No need for fancy techniques here. Just would you like to go ahead? All right. After you've asked the closing question, you need follow-up. Yilin mentioned this. The fortune is in the follow-up. Step number 1, book a decision call. Okay? Book it. Do not leave it vague. I'll call you sometime next week, or you call me when you're ready. Okay? Please, this one thing is so easy to do, but will absolutely massively transform your close rates. So you're making sure that you're making sure that there is no loose ends when it comes to booking that meeting. And here's what I do. I invite people to reject me. I tell them, at this call, please feel free to tell me yay or nay. And I promise you, I'm not going to take it personally if you decide not to. I've got a bit of an advantage. I tell them I've been in sales for a long time. I can take rejection. Please feel free to say no. Oh, thank you, Pauline. That's a very kind comment. Who can reject me? Okay, so sometimes people will not want to book the decision call. And then you have to go through that awkward, what's it called? Following up, call tag, playing phone tag. So if you have to play phone tag, then this is what I learned from David. Send a spear message. The spear message is, David, you still interested? That's it, right? Nice and short, one line. Finally, it's the goodbye message. David, I take it that you're no longer interested, or you've decided to move in a different direction. I wish you well, right? This trigger, again, this is one of those things that very small, but has a very profound effect. People who are interested will immediately get in touch once they see this message. Okay, I am offering complimentary strategy sessions. Let's explore if we can help you to double your revenue in 12 months. You can scan that code, or you can click this link and just book yourself in straight away. This is actually a priority link. I will actually let you get onto my calendar when I won't let other people get in. So obviously, I can only do so many of these. So if you are interested in exploring doubling your revenue by increasing your sales process and your conversions, let's have a chat. Thank you very much for coming along today.
Amazing. Ben, awesome presentation as always. What have we done? We've lost you. Let's get you on the spotlight as well. Yeah, so for those who haven't really spoken with Ben, he says he's introverted, but when he gets on these presentations, there's another Ben. There's Ben 2 that comes out. And you'll notice one thing, right? He's very genuine. He's very honest. And the sales process that he's described, it sounds obvious, but for so many people, they get caught in the emotion. They get fearful. They shut down. And I love the analogy of the doctor, right? I think, I don't believe people should sell ever, right? I think they should help people buy. And I think when you help people buy, you're not a salesperson, you're a customer service person. I'm here to serve you. What do you need? Why did you make contact with us today? What is the problem that you're facing? So asking these questions the way that Ben did it is ideal. I'm going to suggest that if you do not have a sales script or a sales process that you're using in your business right now, you should reach out to Ben, because having a sales process will improve your conversion. There's no two ways about it. Now, you'll notice one theme for today's presentation. We've been talking about systemizing sales success. And the 3 elements that we've talked about is, how do we systemize cold outreach email? Number 1. Number 2 is, how do we systemize once someone sticks their hand in the air and says, I'm interested in whatever you're offering, let's chat, or send me stuff, or show me. How do we make sure that we're keeping that communication alive? And this came back to Craig when he was talking about this idea of responding in a timely manner. The final piece that Ben talked about is critical, because if we don't ask people, if we don't ask questions, if we don't ask people what's stopping you from moving forward today, is there anything else that you need to know? How else can I help you? Are you the right person that I should be talking to? If we're not asking these qualifying questions, right, what ends up happening is we burn sales. And a lot of us know what happens when you don't book the next action. Because I had this conversation with Ben a while back, and I said, never leave the scene of a sale without booking the next action. And if the next action is, thanks very much, we're just not interested right now, cool, right? At least I know not to waste my time chasing somebody. To me, there's a difference between chasing and following up. Following up means giving people breathing space, letting them go and read through things, let them digest your information and come to the decision with you. So for those who haven't booked with Ben, do it, right? It's definitely worth talking to a sales trainer about your sales process. For those who are a bit cagey on CRM, I noticed a little bit of conversation around free CRMs versus paid. I'm not going to suggest you go free. What I'm going to suggest is look for what return on investment you're going to get, because free usually means limited. And if I'm using a CRM to improve my conversion, it's going to make me money. My question is, what's the return on investment that I'm going to get if I do have to pay? Same with cold outreach. Using someone like Yi-Lin to send emails is going to cost money, right? But it's not how much it costs you, it's how much it makes you that's important. And one thing I learned with all business owners is most business owners need to look at each cent that they spend as investment or expense. Now, investment means I expect a return. And one thing that makes me excited about sales and anything that you do with the 3 presenters today, if it improves your sales and it increases your revenue, then it's an investment. It's not an expense. So I think, we have to rethink how we look at money. We have to rethink at how we look at investing in a sales process, because sales processes do 2 things, right? First of all, improve your conversions. But number 2 is it systemizes so that you don't have to be chasing everybody all the time. And going back to what I was talking about right at the start, our business is focused around helping people build teams. And the reason we help people build teams is because I don't believe you can build a business and scale it without having employees. So I just want to wrap up and get the 3 presenters up on the screen, because we've got a few minutes up for Q&A. While we're doing that, what have been your top takeaways from today's session? Into the chat box, top 3 lessons that you're going to walk away with as a result of today's call. Top 3 lessons. If you have any questions, into the chat box with those as well. And let's see if we can glean some extra ideas out of these 3 awesome presenters. Great presentation. Thanks so much. I needed a shift. ROI equals value. Yes, this is the oil that makes your business go. Get a CRM. Got it. Big thank you to everybody for contributing today. Thanks, Stephen. That I need to refocus. 100%. We started this presentation talking about working on the business, not in the business. And I think too many people are stuck in what's called busyness, right? They're not actually building their business. They're just putting out fires. And every single element we've talked about today is a point of leverage within an organization. I mean, imagine you create a sales funnel with cold emails, nurture, and sales calls, and it starts working. What's going to happen is your business will grow. No 2 ways about it. Get a CRM, sort out automation. Thanks, Craig, for setting this up. Got a bounce, really good. It's the whole sales ecosystem equals success. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I just want to finish off if there's no questions, what's the difference between Zoho CRM and Zoom? I think Ruhi needs to talk to Craig separately, because that's quite an in-depth conversation in terms of what the differences are between the 2 CRMs. 3 billion presentations, awesome. As a one-man band, I need to take all these amazing lessons. First, I need to see the doctor, as my mind is blown. I love that. I love that. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time from Albert Einstein, which is the definition of insanity: doing the same thing and expecting a different result. My suggestion, if one thing comes from today, is that you create a list of 1, 2, or 3 action items that you will take away from this presentation and change the way that you run your business. Now, those action items could be as simple as booking times with the presenters. The action items could be as simple as just changing the way that you close a sale. It could be opening your eyes to potentially using cold email marketing as part of your lead gen. So there's a lot of different things we can do, but doing the same thing will produce the same result for you. And just a final reminder, I did mention that we're running a seminar tomorrow morning, self-managed team mastery. So for those of you who are looking at building teams, you're looking at maintaining profitability, improving performance, working out the difference between management and leadership within your organization, or literally just looking for a roadmap. How do I afford to employ people in my business? This presentation will help you for that. So I might just get Ryan, if he can, again, just drop that into the chat box as a link. And I'd like to then open up the floor. So is there any questions for any 1 or 2 or 3 of the presenters? This is your opportunity to ask those questions.
So I've got a question, David.
Someone's got a question?
My hand is up. You can't see the hand
Charles.
up?
Oh, we can, yes. Charles, go for it.
Beautiful. Great presentations. Thanks, everyone. Great reminder. I want to mention to Ben particularly, but all of you, acres of diamonds. David, remember the acres
Yes.
of diamonds story?
It's a brilliant story.
And one of the things that's a good test on your existing network. So the moral of the story is under our feet, we have acres of diamonds, our existing relationships.
Mhm.
And we go searching out there for the wealth when it's under our feet. And so one of the interesting questions is, how clear are your existing friends and networks about what you are presently offering? And I've been a professional speaker for many years, and it's a truism in the industry that most spouses don't know what their spouses do or even talk about. And so, this articulation, David, it's a great reminder of, gosh, I wonder how many of my network actually know what I do.
Yeah. And sort of this ties in, thanks, Charles, that's awesome, because this ties in with Craig's presentation on CRM. I think letting the market know not only what you do, but keeping that message in front of them all the time. Because you're right, we pigeonhole people and we think, oh yes, David's a business coach, so therefore if I need a coach, I will pull on him. But I might help on something that you're having a problem with right now, but you're not aware of it. So I think what Charles is touching on here is critical. Most people have networks. And most people are looking for new leads when the reality is they've got these leads sitting there right in their own CRM right now or spreadsheet. And all they need to do is communicate with them and let them know what they're up to. And you'll be surprised what pops out the other end of that. So great reminder, Charles. Thank you. Thank you. We've got another one, Keith. Have you got your hand up, Keith, for a question?
Sorry, I have. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. My question is, I'm always I hear different messages about how quickly and openly you should say what your price is. On the one hand, you should sort of package things up to productize them and make them clear. And after all, it is one of the first questions. So, I think people often assume, for example, that video production might be quite expensive. And I want to say, I suppose I'm trying to test whether we're in the ballpark or not. So I like to say a price, but what do you guys think?
Can I start with this?
Sure.
Price needs to be given so that people can place an order. But here's the issue with price. Price also gives people an end of conversation to make an evaluation. So when someone asks you for a price and you give it to them immediately, in their mind, they go, okay, that's X amount of dollars or value. Is it worth it? So I think one of the things, and I'm sure Ben will agree with this, is do not hesitate to give people price, but make sure you put value first. Okay.
Right.
Make sure you put value first. So if someone says, how much is it? And you say, that's a great question. Let me just talk about the problem that we're solving and how much the value that you will receive is before I mention the price. Because as soon as I mention the price, it stops.
So just to clarify that then, Yi Lin, for example, if I'm doing an email out, would you not, I accept you've got to put the value first, but would you not mention, what they're going to pay for it in an email out?
Never. Everyone's shaking their head, never. You get them on the call, have a chat with them before we get to that point.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah.
Ben.
I might just jump in there. So going back to the qualifying questions, that's what the budget question's for.
Yeah.
Right. So and what I usually recommend is stating your minimum price. Right. So if you say it's a range, like I can charge anywhere, my clients, starts from 5,000 all the way up to 50,000, depending on what you need.
Yeah.
But the important thing about the minimum is just to make sure that they're playing in the same stadium. Like if they want to play in the local football field versus the MCG, you got to figure out like what's the ballpark. So start with the minimum if they really are insistent on the price upfront.
And one more thing I'll throw on that is that most sales engagement is all about selling the next step. So if you're doing a cold email, all you really want is for people to reply.
Yeah.
Okay. So think about what you're trying to get them to do and just sell the next step.
Yeah. No,
okay. Because with what Ben described, qualification is important, right? Because you know how much you're going to charge in broad terms, and you just need to make sure the person you're talking to has access to those kind of funds, or else you're just wasting a lot of time. So price is important, but it has to be at the right time within the sales process. Great question. Thank you.
Guys.
We've got a couple more minutes. If there's any other questions, you've got a panel of amazing sales experts here. So please into the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself if you've got a question you'd like to ask these guys.
Yes, David, there was a question on Zoho. Someone put it in the chat. Who's the Zoho expert here today?
Okay.
Just in terms of a CO, is there someone? There was, Craig?
Yeah, it's Dan. So well, I'm a bit CRM agnostic, but if you talk to Dan, who's in the chat, he's a specialist in Zoho. Dan Sheen, if you raise your hand or put a comment.
There he is.
Search him. I know he's in the chat. He's definitely keen. If you're using Zoho, then you need a Zoho expert. I think, like for me with CRMs, when people say which one should I use, I say stop asking which one should I use and start asking what's the functionality that you want.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure what the functionality is that's available, start researching, because it is amazing now. We use a CRM that does SMS, it does email. All the reminders from today came through our CRM. We have booking links in there. The things that are available now never used to be available. And so the integration is important. And it comes back to, I think, this idea of speed, you know, and when people are asking questions, we need to be able to answer them as quickly as possible without being generic and without being sort of salesy, so to speak. So good question on that. Dan's put his contact details into the chat, so we've got that one nailed. Great. We're just on 9:59. We've done an awesome job.
Can I add, David, one other thing that Ben reminded me of? You know, the doctor metaphor is excellent, useful. Yep. Imagine, this is just a sticky idea to help us remember this. Imagine going to your doctor, sorry, a new doctor, and you walk into the doctor and you say, "G'day, I'm here to see the doctor," and the doctor says, "Wonderful to welcome you, Ben. Now let me tell you about my qualifications."
Yeah. It's a good metaphor, because I think people do get confused, and often I'll explain, like what you just described, Charles. The first sales call is usually like the triage nurse in a hospital. Her job, or his job, is to work out whether you're going to die in the next 3 minutes or not. And if you are, you go straight in, and if you're not, you wait 5 hours like everyone else. And I think we don't do that often in our sales process. We don't ask qualifying questions early so that we can assess the best way to deal with a lead. So people are so busy let me tell you all about myself, instead of, hey, what's wrong with you? What's the problem that we need to solve? Is it urgent, or is it something that's going to take a bit of time to process? So I think it is important to understand sales process. I think having someone like Ben review your sales process and identify what the questions you should be asking are, because we tend to, as Charles just described, we tend to tell people how awesome we are, instead of asking them, what problem do you have that I can solve, and building that relationship and rapport. So that's a great point out as well. Guys, we're right on 10 o'clock. I'm very respectful of everyone's time. I really appreciate your time and engagement today. I hope you got a lot from today's session. And I especially would like to thank our 3 presenters. So Yi-Ling for talking about email outreach, which is an amazing system. Craig Edwards for being very kind and generic about how he talks about CRM, because I think it's a mindset, not a product. And people have to pick it based on what it's going to do for them. And obviously with Ben, just really clamping down on that whole idea of how to ask great questions, how to make sure that we are helping people buy rather than just selling. So please reach out to any of these 3 presenters if you need help. Other than that, like I said, if you need help building a team, that's us. We'd love to see you at our next event. We do run these on a regular basis. And once again, I'd like to take my hat off to the presenters for doing an amazing job. And thank you also for your time and attention. Cheers, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.